Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV. I'm Aditi Bhardwaj and let's take a look at the top stories that we are tracking here at this hour, including the New Orleans attack where at least 15 people have died. FBI probes ISIS angle in the New Orleans vehicle attack case after an ISIS flag is found near the body of the prime accused. At least 15 people killed, 30 others injured on the New Year's Day attack. US President Biden says he won't tolerate attack on any community. New Orleans, a terror suspect identified as a war veteran who had served in Afghanistan and was later working as a real estate agent. FBI is probing the motive behind the attack. A gunman has shot dead at least 10 people, including 2 children in southern Montenegro on Wednesday. As per the police information, this is a mass shooting that happened. And the Chinmoy Krishna Das's bail hearing is scheduled for today in Bangladesh. Remember, he was arrested from the airport in Dhaka in connection with a sedition case filed in Chittagong on November 25. And as the pre-war deal expires, Ukraine halts Russia gas transit from its area to European countries, says it will not let Russia earn from its blood money. A driver hell-bent on carnage rammed a truck into reveling crowds in United States' New Orleans' famous Bourbon Street, turning the New Year into a tragedy for many. The FBI is investigating a mass casualty event when a man drove a pickup truck into crowds, killing at least 15 people and injuring many in the early hours of New Year's Day in New Orleans. The accused has been identified as the U.S. Army veteran Shamsuddin Jabbar, injured another 35 people, including shooting 2 police officers who returned fire and killed him. Now, President Joe Biden has condemned the incident, while President-elect Donald Trump has issued a statement condemning the attack and said his administration will do everything to support the investigation into this act of evil. He said, and I quote, "When I said that the criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media. But it turned out to be true." For more, my colleague Caroline Malone reports.
I'm not going to comment till I speak to the group later. I've spoken to every member of the agency, from the CIA to our national security team, to our FBI, NSC, and we're gathering all the, and I spent a lot of time with the government, with the mayor.
What was your reaction when you heard what happened?
Well, the reaction was one of anger and frustration.
And for more on this, I am being joined by Natasha Israni, live from New York, and Huma Ansari from Texas. Natasha, if I can come to you first, what is the latest from the authorities on the investigation into the attack? Natasha, if I can, Natasha, please unmute yourself. And yeah, I was asking, what is the latest from authorities on the investigation into the attack? Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, well, the latest is that the authorities, the FBI is saying, considering this a terrorist attack, and they do not believe that the attacker acted alone. There are different levels of investigations. There's the Louisiana State Police, right, which is where New Orleans is located. So they came out with an intelligence bulletin in which they say investigators found multiple improvised explosives, including 2 pipe bombs concealed within coolers and wired for remote detonation. And that makes them believe that this attacker actually had accomplices, and they are looking for these accomplices, though this part of the story has not been fully confirmed by federal authorities. But the general idea is that this was definitely a terrorist attack, and President Biden has also come out later, even after the clip that we saw of him in our report. He came out later and said that he has been told that this was that the attacker was inspired by Islamic State, and investigators also briefed President Biden, telling him that they have found videos on social media posted before the attack where the attacker showed an intent to want to kill people.
Absolutely. Natasha, if you can give us a sense of the area that where the incident happened. It was a busy street, and there was a football game also that was supposed to happen. Perhaps that's why the attacker chose that incident, as the authorities said that he wanted to kill as many people as possible.
Yes, and that is so unfortunate. On New Year's Eve, this area is called the French Quarter of New Orleans, and Bourbon Street is very, very popular with both tourists and locals. I visited that a few years ago, and basically there are a lot of restaurants, there are a lot of bars, there are a lot of clubs, nightclubs, and a lot of revelers bringing in the new year were going to be there and were there. And in fact, the New Orleans police had been aware of the fact that there's a potential for an attack, not specific intelligence on this attack, but in general. Since 2017, they have considered that area as being a potential target because of the number of people who gather there during New Year's Eve and during other large music festivals. So there were actually 400 police officers on the ground, and they were actually in the process of updating their barrier system. Their barrier system updates were to end next month, which is in February, before another massive football game called the Super Bowl, which is actually the venue for that, is within a mile of where this attack took place. So they were in the middle of changing their barrier system, and they had police cars parked to block access to the pedestrian paths. But unfortunately, this truck, the attacker, he bypassed one of the police cars and still went on to the sidewalk, which is where the carnage took place, in which now we see that 15 people died. And
unfortunate, very unfortunate. Thank you so much, Natasha. Stay with me. I'm also being joined by Huma Ansari, live from Texas. Huma, tell us about the FBI's ISIS angle that they are probing in the case.
As soon as this incident happened, the FBI stepped into this and they took over the scene. Now, I did hear the press conference and the authorities, the New Orleans authorities, bringing to notice that 2017 they did want to barricade and they wanted to make the area more secure. And it's been 7 years because they were anticipating an attack of this magnitude. Since 2017, they did fear that something like this might happen and somebody might drive into this busy and crowded. Now, not only the Mardi Gras, not only the New Year's Eve, not now the Super Bowl, but this place, the French Quarters, is a very narrow space with people walking all the time and a hustle bustle going on. And there are so many things that are being linked now to it being like pre-planned for a longer period, because even the fact that the car was rented from Texas. Now, Houston is almost like an 8-hour drive to New Orleans, 6.5, 8 hours drive, give and take. So now FBI is trying to trace the footprints back to who all were involved, what were the stops that were made, what all transpired within this 6 to 8 hour drive when the suspect, possibly along with his accomplice, was traveling to New Orleans. Now, we can't, definitely nothing cannot be said at the moment that if the accomplices rode with him from Houston or they joined from other places, those kind of things cannot be made sure of. And also, the Airbnb has been cordoned off because, and 2 blocks, possibly a couple of blocks, have been really cordoned off by the FBI because they do suspect there is some active IEDs that could cause more damage. So FBI stepped in, and they have, although they did delay the Sugar Bowl by 24 hours, but by the looks of it, it does seem very difficult that it might happen tomorrow.
Right. Thank you so much, Huma Ansari and Natasha, for joining us. A 42-year-old suspect has been killed in the attack, and now the FBI is investigating this as an act of terrorism. My colleague Caroline Malone also has more details. Take a look.
The people of New Orleans are still in shock after a horrific attack on the streets of the French Quarter while they were just out to celebrate the start of the new year. A suspect now named as 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar, a US citizen from Texas, has been killed, but not before he rammed his truck into crowds and shot at police. An ISIS flag was found in the vehicle, and the FBI says they're looking into a potential connection to terrorism, as well as saying they don't believe he acted alone. 2 IEDs, explosive devices, were found in the area, and as of early afternoon, the crime scene was still cordoned off. The investigation is ongoing, and the FBI has asked for the public's help to report anything suspicious that they have seen. The FBI also said the suspect was a US Army veteran who was honourably discharged. They've asked anyone who interacted with him in the last 72 hours to contact them with information. Well, Governor Jeff Landy also emphasised that this is a fluid process and law enforcement is, quote, hunting down the bad guys. Well, a college football game that was due to take place on Wednesday evening in New Orleans has been postponed until Thursday. Investigations continue with many unanswered questions as people begin to try and process these tragic events. Caroline Malone, NDTV, Washington.
And a horrific incident unfolded outside the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas on New Year's Day. A Tesla Cybertruck exploded in flames, killing one person and injuring at least 7 others. Witnesses captured dramatic footage of the Cybertruck engulfed in flames just steps from the hotel entrance. The explosion occurred mere hours after another deadly attack in New Orleans, where a truck plowed into crowds celebrating New Year's Day. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police are investigating, with the FBI now involved. Sheriff says, he said, and I quote, that questions remain unanswered about the link between the vehicle, the location and the timing of the incident. Elon Musk, Tesla CEO and advisor to President-elect Donald Trump, clarified that preliminary investigations showed the blast was caused by fireworks or a bomb in the truck's bed, unrelated to the vehicle's design or function. In fact, Musk further went on to say that the suspect picked the wrong vehicle for a terrorist attack. He clarified that Cybertruck actually contained the explosion and directed the blast upwards. Tesla is further investigating the matter also. According to authorities, the Trump International Hotel, owned by the Trump Organization, was not directly targeted. However, with President-elect Donald Trump set to take office on January 20, speculations remain about the motive behind the explosion. Authorities have not ruled out terrorism as a possible cause, and investigations are ongoing in this matter. And now at least 10 people, including 2 children, were killed and 4 others were wounded in a shooting on Wednesday that followed a bar brawl in the western Montenegro city, officials said. Now, police have identified the attacker as 45-year-old. The country's interior minister later told state broadcaster RTCG that the gunman had died from injuries en route to hospital after shooting himself. The gunman killed the owner of the bar of the city and the bar owner's children and his own family members. Now, as per the reports at a news conference, the authorities have confirmed that the suspect died from self-inflicted injuries on Thursday after attempting suicide. The gunman, identified by police, is Alexander. He was a 45-year-old man and he attempted suicide near his home in the town after being cornered by the police. And now incarcerated Hindu monk Chinmoy will have a shot at presenting his case in court if lawyers are able to appear on his behalf and if his bail hearing takes place in a court in Bangladesh. Earlier, court hearings had to be postponed as lawyers appearing for Chinmoy Krishna were threatened. His earlier lawyer, Rabindra Ghosh, is in Kolkata for medical treatment, had to be hospitalized and has promised to appoint someone to appear for Chinmoy Krishna in his place. Chinmoy Krishna, who had organized protests demanding protection of minorities who continue to come under attack, was jailed under trumped-up charges including sedition. All eyes will be on Bangladesh to see whether due process of law is followed or not and whether free and fair judicial proceedings take place or not. My colleague Saurabh Gupta is joining me here from India. Saurabh, will the hearing take place is a big question. Many confusion and questions remain, but this is a hope for Chinmoy Krishna.
Yes, there is, of course, a lot of concern within India and especially within ISKCON over Chinmoy Krishna. Remember, he was picked up from Dhaka last year and then, of course, he spent more than a month in jail over what many have described as trumped-up charges. Chinmoy Krishna was someone who was known for organizing, especially demanding protection of minorities, and therefore, of course, many feel that the radical elements that exist in Bangladesh have gone after him. Now, while, this has led to a lot of strain in the relationship, the bilateral relationship, of course, is more than this, and there are multiple, facets to it and multiple issues that sort of make up the entire relationship. But this is one issue that has been something that even the Ministry of External Affairs has commented on, and of course, many in India have called for his release, saying that this is something that, of course, is absolutely wrong. In fact, in court, the Bangladesh government had earlier called ISKCON a fundamentalist organization, something that is very, very upsetting for a lot of people, given the fact that ISKCON is largely involved in relief work and even worked in Bangladesh during the recent floods. So Chinmoy Krishna bail hearing will be important, but it will happen only if lawyers can appear and if the hearing takes place in free and fair surroundings.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Saurabh, for joining us with that update. I'm also being joined by my guest, Salim Samad, who is a senior journalist in Bangladesh. Salim, thank you so much for joining us. And what does this tell you about the state of situation in Bangladesh? We are here contemplating if a basic hearing will take place, if the basic right of a human, which is the lawyer should be there to, present the case. What are we discussing today? What does it tell you about the state of affairs in Bangladesh?
Thank you for having me in this morning. First of all, I have to admit that I also was a victim of the sedition case. So I know the process, what is also happening to Chinmoy. First of all, Chinmoy will not get a bail from this court. That doesn't happen in Bangladesh. They has to go to appear in the higher court. And unfortunately, his lawyer, who's a pro bono lawyer, Rabindra Ghosh, I just spoke to him last night. He's still in India on treatment. So he is a Supreme Court lawyer. So, until he returns, I don't think he will be given a proper hearing in this court. And never in Bangladesh, in the last 53 years, somebody has got especially for sedition case, like me, happened with me, the lower court doesn't give a bail. It has to go appear to the higher court, at least high court, for a bail. So for him, it will be a little frustration, of course.
If you can explain a bit on the legal angle, you said that he won't get a bail in the lower court, but in India, if you apply and then the lower court rejects it or the hearing takes place, then only you can move further to higher courts. Is that the similar case in Bangladesh as well? If today he doesn't get a bail or the lawyer doesn't appear, what will happen next?
No, a lawyer definitely may appear, of course, but according to the British legacy, that is happening even during the Swadeshi movement in before 1947. So you have to understand that we are still following the ghost of the British laws. And the law says that the sedition will not be given bail to somebody who is charged for sedition in the lower court. The lower court has to reject that court. Once the lower court rejects in Chittagong, he's in Chittagong, the Chittagong court rejects immediately the lawyer, at least advocate, his lawyers will be able to appear or file a petition in the higher court. That has also happened with me. So I know thrice it was rejected in the lower court in my case of sedition. So and of course the higher court has given me instantly a bail.
Well, unfortunate scenes there unfolding in Bangladesh where, I have no words, I'm speechless right now. Will this monk get a bail hearing, then get legal procedure, legal help in a fair manner remains a big question. Thank you, Salim, for joining us at this hour. This is what Bangladesh interim government is also facing a lot of heat on the way the process is going on in Chinmoy Das's hearing. And with that, we're slipping into a very short break, but more news updates lined up on the other side. Former Israeli Defense Minister Yaakov Gallant has announced his resignation from parliament on Wednesday. Gallant, who frequently clashed with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his far-right allies, made the decision months after being dismissed from the government. In a televised statement, he said, and I quote, "There are moments in which one must stop, assess and choose a direction to achieve the goals." Gallant had been critical of exemptions for ultra-Orthodox men from military service and had opposed Netanyahu's plans to weaken the Supreme Court. His dismissal in March 2023 triggered mass protests, forcing Netanyahu to reverse his decision. Both Gallant and Netanyahu, along with a Hamas leader, face International Criminal Court arrest warrants over alleged war crimes in Gaza, which Israel has contested and denied. Now, Russian gas exports via Ukraine's pipelines came to a halt on New Year's Day, ending decades of Moscow's dominance over Europe's energy market. The stoppage announced by Gazprom follows Ukraine's decision not to renew its transit agreement. Unlike the 2022 crisis, Europe has secured alternative suppliers like Norway, the US and Qatar. Slovakia and Austria are unaffected, while Hungary continues to receive gas through the Turk Stream pipeline. However, the breakaway region of Transnistria in Moldova has reported heating and hot water cuts, highlighting localized impacts of the decision. The Ukraine has said that it has been done in the interest of national, and also it will not let Russia earn the money used for its own war.
Well, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky saying that the end of this gas transit deal is one of Moscow's biggest defeats, saying that when Vladimir Putin came to power 25 years ago, more than 130 billion cubic meters of Russian gas was going to Europe. Now that number is zero. There is a concern from some European countries that that will make the price of gas more expensive for them, specifically from Slovakia, who has been an opponent of the end of this gas transit deal. The Ukrainian perspective on this, of course, is that for them, they cannot allow gas that would help fund Moscow's war machine and its invasion of their country to flow through Ukrainian territory. Now, Austria, another European country very much affected by this, has said they've already diversified their sources of gas. To give you a sense, at the start of the full-scale invasion, Europe got about 40% of its gas from Russia. Now that number is just 10%, reflecting what the European Commission has said about this, which is that Europe is ready for the end of this gas transit deal. Nevertheless, Slovakia, very unhappy. Prime Minister Robert Fico there criticizing Volodymyr Zelensky for the decision to end this deal. Ukraine had offered to compensate Slovakia, but they were not taken up on that offer. One last country of note, Moldova, small country bordering Ukraine, already having gas shortages at the moment. President Zelensky saying that Ukraine will step up to help its neighboring country. Alex Kadier, NDTV, Kyiv, Ukraine.
And with that, we're slipping into a very short break.